6 p.m. in Yambai, that is in the Sanaga Maritime Division of the Littoral region. Good evening, dear televiewers. Thank you so much for joining me on today's edition of the 6 p.m. Primetime Newscast. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. A gendarme officer is accused of extorting the sum of 370,000 francs from a passenger's mobile money account. This incident occurred at the Miselele control post. Road users, particularly drivers plying the Douala, Boya, Kumba road, are decrying constant harassment by the defense and security forces. The circumstances that led to this incident will be explained in this edition of the news. And in sports, the bad state of roads in the city of Douala pushes the Belgian cycling coordinator Laurent Geniteni to cancel this year's cycling tour that was to take place today. Still in sports, memories of the Cameroonian football team defeating the powerhouse Argentina 33 years ago are still very fresh in the minds of Cameroonians, especially football lovers. On today's edition of the news, we will take you down memory lane to tell you more of how the Indomitable Lions made history during the 1990 World Cup. Those are major stories. Stay with us for details and more. Once more, thank you so much for staying connected to news on Equinoxe television. We begin with this human interest story. A gendarme officer is currently being investigated after he was accused of extorting at least 370,000 francs from a young man's mobile money account at the Miselele control post. The victim alerted a human rights defender who came to his rescue. Details in this report compiled by Malaglary.
This is the young man who was tortured by gendarme officers at the Miselele control post on his way to Boya. The victim lost at least 370,000 francs to gendarme officers. He immediately called for a human rights actor who came to defend his fundamental right. According to Tambetiko, he was harassed and money extorted from his mobile money account.
I want to know how 370,000 left Nguve's phone to the hands of these officers. That was all. It was not a complicated investigation. So I advised him that he should not get involved, given that he himself had made certain disclosures that he was not aware of what happened at his back. So eventually the officers came and I interviewed them. They asked for forgiveness. They did not refute the allegations made against them. Even
Tambetiko met with the head of the gendarme post in order to carry out an investigation and for justice to be established.
They carried him on their bike when withdrew the money. So when they came, they gave back the money, and I asked them their names and whatever. They were hesitant, but eventually got their names, and that was how we ended the investigation at that level. So the money effectively was handed over to the victim.
This is the money that was taken from you, right?
Yes.
How much?
370,000.
Count it. Count it. Be sure that it is 370,000 francs. I want to be sure.
According to the human rights actor, the action shows the security of Cameroonians is not guaranteed, whereas the government has always assured the population that their rights are protected.
Head of state has made it possible that human rights are protected all over the country, and that is why a formidable institution like the Cameroon Human Rights Commission has been put in place with an increased mandate, acting as a national mechanism for the prevention of torture. It shows the political will of the government. It is not a state policy, and it is not every police or gendarme who engages also in such acts. So delinquents like that should be fished out of the profession.
The human rights actor says their sole objective is to assist the government to ensure a free society where human rights are respected.
And on to something else. In a bid to fight against poor disposal of plastic waste in most neighborhoods of the city of Douala, the Douala 4 Council has launched a 2-day campaign aimed at sensitizing the population on the responsible ways of disposing plastics. Ese Luciliengo has more.
Cameroon has been struggling against plastic pollution for some time now. The country is said to produce around 600,000 tons of plastic waste per year. Managing plastic waste has been a major challenge and concern to authorities of the city of Douala, who, in a bid to seek solutions, sensitize people on responsible ways of disposing plastics.
On le fait dans le curage des drains, nettoyage des caniveaux, ainsi de suite.
We have decided to clean the gutters, pick up plastics.
Uniquement le ramassage.
Today was just for us to pick up the wrappings, bottles. We are trying to contribute to the well-being of the population.
À l'environnement de Douala 4e.
Workers of the Douala 4 municipality have been educating city dwellers on the importance of gauging plastic waste. The workers went around the industrial zone picking up plastic papers, bottles from roadside gutters so as to reduce the accumulation of waste. What we are trying to ensure is that everywhere is clean. Without cleanness, we can't do anything. The Douala 4 council officials also have as mission to reduce floods and protect the population from waterborne diseases. The 2 days mission will end with the planting of trees in some neighborhoods.
Asia Lucy Liengo reporting they are now to something else. The National Communication Council is bent on fighting against hate speech across the Republic of Cameroon, visiting different media organs in the city of Douala, amongst them Equinoxe Television. They alerted the administration and the staff on the sanctions that await journalists who violate the law. Details with Mala Glory.
At the Equinoxe Media House, members of the National Communication Council describe hate speech as an enemy destroying national unity and integration. Expression of hatred has been on the rise in Cameroon for the last few months, and media men and women of this great institution have been called upon to join the government in fighting hate speech.
We came here just to sensitize journalists of Equinoxe TV that hate speech is not good. Hate speech can destroy our unity, our living together, destroy our nation. So we must avoid it.
The CEO and the editor-in-chief reminded the council that hate speech and xenophobia is not allowed in the institution, and for that reason, some panelists have been blacklisted from participating in debate programs on Equinoxe Television.
Years ago, to fight against this type of hate speech, that's why you cannot see in our debate those people who carried this type of hate speech. And we are proud of what the CNC have done here today to exchange with journalists and sensitize them about this purpose. But we are not concerned by that because it's our main editorial line.
During the meeting, the Vice President of the National Communication Council reminded journalists of the different sanctions that await them.
A warning, we can also suspend you for a period not exceeding 6 months, and we can exclude you from the profession.
The editor-in-chief of the Equinoxe Media House, on his part, accused the council for partially doing their job.
Je veux comprendre pourquoi on ne m'a pas sanctionné en 2019. On a sanctionné mon collègue en 2022. Pourquoi je suis interpellé pour un invité qui met entre guillemets et dégage la responsabilité de ma chaîne.
The meeting ended with members of the National Council expressing satisfaction with the job carried out by Equinoxe Media House.
And a June ordinary session of Parliament began today at the National Assembly. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Kavayi Gidribil, said Cameroon is one and indivisible and will continue on the path of becoming an emergent country. He raised concerns about the security situation in the northwest and southwest regions, while citing the kidnapping of close to 30 women in Babanki by separatist fighters. He denounced acts of terrorism regarding the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon. Special interest was also given to the health sector, with health issues like cholera and COVID-19 raised. This June session of Parliament comes at a time when some health workers are currently protesting against poor working conditions. And on to something else. Food shortage and access to other social amenities are major problems faced by internally displaced people from the northwest and southwest regions, as well as those facing Boko Haram and Silika attacks in the north and east regions respectively. In a bid to restore dignity and offer a hand to these vulnerable people, a consignment of rice provided by the United States Agency for International Development arrived to Douala Seaport today. It will be sent to those in these crisis areas. Annabella tells us more.
The war in the northwest and southwest regions, Boko Haram insurgency in the north, and attacks of Seleka rebels in the east region of Cameroon have been adversely affecting the lives of people who still live in these areas. There now exists over 80,000 refugees going through hardship at various refugee centers across the country. Thousands of Cameroonians from the conflict-stricken northwest and southwest are displaced from their regions of origin. They are now in search for food, health, and even shelter. The World Food Programme and the U.S. Agency for International Development have ensured that over 11,000 tons of rice present at the port of Douala are directed to the hungry and needy refugees in Cameroon, the Central African Republic, and Chad. It is aimed at checking the food situation and hunger crisis faced by this group of people.
We know that a little refugee you see today could be the one that changed the world tomorrow. So it's human dignity, you know, it's the generosity of the American people to recognize that, to continue to support those so people can have continuing dignity.
The huge consignments got to Cameroon amid several stumbling blocks on the Atlantic Ocean, such as sea pirates who most often attack cargo boats and its occupants for huge sums of money as ransoms.
And now we talk sports. The fifth stage of the International Cycling Tour that was to take place today in Douala has been cancelled by the Belgian cycling coordinator Laurent Geniteni. His decision comes after noticing the bad state of roads which the cyclists were expected to use today. Smaji Kangibel reports.
Riders at the 19th edition of the International Cycling Tour were unable to compete in the fifth stage of the race that was supposed to be a closed-circuit one within the economic capital of Douala. The reason for the cancellation of the closed-circuit race has been linked to the poor state of roads found along the race course in Douala. We did 3 circuits. The first was to pass through Saint Thomas, but there the potholes were visible. The cycling coordinator said it won't go. Then we went to the second circuit, which is to leave IUG via General Hospital to Sokave. Again, we met a problem at the Malange market with many potholes. We went now through the Ndokoti tunnel to Sinkates, but at the Ndokoti tunnel, a large pothole disturbed the race. The poor state of the roads and the heavy rains that descended had a negative effect on the race course. Though the riders weren't happy about the cancellation, they say it was a good thing to prevent them from unnecessary injuries. It was a special stage, short but cancelled, because the closed circuit was marred by potholes and the rain that fell didn't make things easier. It was a good decision to cancel it so that injuries and tire puncture won't occur. As a rider, I'm disappointed, but we hope next time it won't be this way.
C'est un peu dommage de trouver des circuits comme ça, alors que ici à Douala, comme ailleurs, il y a des très beaux circuits.
We shall keep trying till the end of the race, but we are disappointed because the race was cancelled here in Douala. We can't do anything. Man proposes, but God disposes.
Comme on a annulé, on peut rien faire.
l'homme propose, Dieu dispose. Bon.
An official from Rwanda was also pleased with the decision of the International Cycling Coordinator. It is normal because of the poor state of the road. We appreciate the decision by the Cameroon Cycling Federation and the International Cycling Coordinator. With the cancellation of the 5th stage of the International Cycling Tour here in Cameroon's economic capital, Morocco's El Kouhaj Moshuni remains with the yellow jersey.
And still in sports, today marks exactly 33 years since Cameroon surprisingly defeated football powerhouse Argentina during the FIFA World Cup in 1990. The victory of the indomitable Lions against Diego Maradona's Argentina changed the notion many had about African football. Smaji Kangerul comes back to that 1990 football encounter between Cameroon and Argentina.
In a way to send Cameroon a warning signal about the upcoming confrontation with Argentina, after the traditional greetings, late Diego Armando Maradona will play with the match ball. It was June 8, 1990 at the Giuseppe Meazza Stadium in Milan, Italy, during the FIFA World Cup. Before the game between the football powerhouse Argentina and Africa's Cameroon, many knew that football in Africa is all about black magic and could never produce any positive results. At the time, with almost all players of Cameroon coming from the French league, they had no chance against the most dreaded team at the time, Argentina. In an engaging encounter, Argentina will miss several goal-scoring chances that further gave Cameroon the hopes of beating Argentina. And that miracle happened at the 90th minute when François Oman Biyik benefited from a corner to head in the lone goal of the match.
Error en el marcaje por parte de Argentina, lanzamiento de una falta y Pumpido, que no llegó a atajar, vio como la pelota llegaba a la red. Minuto 22 de la segunda parte. Camerún con 10 hombres por expulsión de Canavillic marcaba el...
Es un tiro libre de Vela desde la izquierda, toca Makanaki.
The goal silenced the numerous supporters at the Giuseppe Meazza Stadium who were supporting favourite Argentina. Even though Cameroon lost to Switzerland, which brought their FIFA World Cup adventure to an end, the victory still remains in the heart of everyone as an underrated team forced an experienced side to bow down in the history of the FIFA World Cup. Every 8 June brings back the sweet memories of that superb win that Cameroon recorded over Argentina.
Camerún daba la gran sorpresa, se hundió Argentina.
A wonderful football experience day, and sports lovers have been asking questions why the country still keeps losing players to other countries who are not better than Cameroon. The decision of Ivan Dike to play for the Ivory Coast is the latest case in point. Smaji Kangebel reports.
Ivan Ndika has become one of the latest to miss out playing for the indomitable Lions of Cameroon. The young defender, who is of Cameroonian nationality, has decided to put on the orange colors of Ivory Coast. The former French under-21 player had on many occasions shown his desire to play for the country of Samuel Eto'o, but without any effort put in place, he might just be representing Ivory Coast for the first time when the Elephants take on the Chipolopolo of Zambia later this month. According to a source, the decision of Ivan Dika to choose Ivory Coast over Cameroon was motivated by the treatment given to Onana. It is alleged that uncompetitive players are preferred than competitive ones in the national team. Ivan Ndika started his football career in Auxerre, France, before moving to Frankfurt in Germany. Ivan Ndika is not the only player to have hoped to play with Cameroon, but was left out. Recently, Shasa Boye, after waiting for several years to be called up to represent the green, red, yellow colors of Cameroon, decided to switch nationality as he accepted a call from the French Football Federation.
And that sports element ends this first part of the news. Talking Point is up next. It's no longer news that a lot of social media accounts are being hacked daily. It's so painful to have built a strong social media presence and eventually lose it in the hands of social media hackers. These social media criminals do not only hack accounts, but they also use those accounts to defraud owners, friends, families, and loved ones. They also use their hack accounts to get linked to other accounts the affected account is linked to. For example, someone whose Google accounts gets hacked has made it easy for the hackers to get free and easy access to other linked accounts. How then can we protect our accounts from being hacked? That's what we'll be discussing today on Talking Point. My guest today is an ethical hacker. He's called Cedric Che Azengua. Hello, Cedric. It is a pleasure having you on Talking Point today. The National Agency for Information and Communication recently published a report that says 12.2 billion francs CFA has been lost by Cameroon due to cyber criminality. As an ethical hacker, what do you think might have gone wrong?
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. Above 12 billion francs CFA, it's actually a huge amount to be lost in cybersecurity. But I even think it's possible that more was lost. This should have been called out of statistics which were done officially in the field. But when the National Agency of Information and Telecommunications actually talks of a figure like that, we should start looking at what are the avenues through which this money would have been lost. And we're going to discover there are actually several avenues where this might have been lost. And if we're looking at those avenues, we're going to discover one problem: lack of education. People actually are not aware, they're not educated on what hackers and scammers and whoever is being malicious on the internet actually uses to be able to carry out these crimes. I'm going to give very concrete examples. A lot of people would probably think that money is, when we talk of money being lost in cybercrime, we're looking just at scammers who probably get to you, maybe by phone or through some other means, to use some malicious method to tell you that maybe send me some money, and then they steal that money. But it goes way, 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 way beyond that. Cybercrime goes to the level where you actually have people engaging in the dark market, people who are actually trading in illicit items. When the government is trying to track down those people, money is being lost. You have people who are on the dark market probably getting their hands on illegal material, drugs, be it dangerous weapons, because you could actually get weapons on the dark market, you could get drugs on the dark market, you could get hardware which you could actually use to carry out one or two crimes. For example, cat cloners, robot duckies, which you can connect to someone's computer or someone's device and be able to clone the device, be able to erase the device. Tools like that. Immediately a crime is committed using these tools, the amount of damage which is being caused is tremendous. And then now let's even go to an organizational perspective. You have organizations which actually have money getting lost. What about the organizations who have not actually given a public notice of actually being pirated, of actually being hacked, or of actually being scammed? That money is not accounted for. So you could have an organization where a hacker actually penetrates into the system through some exploit. That organization loses access to some of their information, to some of their data. That is actually money which is going to be lost, by the organization, because data is actually expensive nowadays. Now, this problem and what went wrong is going to be an educational problem. From the perspective of organizations, the employees are really not educated on how to prevent attacks. For example, several employees come to the office with computers which they use at their homes. They use those computers without any protection, no password policies, no security policies. They click on any link which is being sent. They download information in every way. The network is not protected. Strangers coming, they can get into the network. So the education is very much lacking. From the perspective of civilians themselves, they are not very educated into how hackers have their information, how a hacker can actually have their identity and pretend to their children or to their mother that maybe I'm your mother, I'm sending you a message using your mother's phone number, and you think your mother is sick and you send money to her. You're not educated on that, the fact that scammers can actually use that, hackers can actually use that. So we are really in a budding society where this cybersecurity is actually really a new phenomenon. We are still getting used to it. We are not even having access to technology. And so when we are attacked from this perspective with the lack of education, it becomes really, really difficult for us to be able to fight against it. And I think the figures which have been put out, they are just based on official figures of what has been expressed. There are several companies which have lost several millions and billions due to cyber criminality.
So, Cedric, is everyone using the internet vulnerable to attackers?
Every single person who uses internet services is vulnerable to cybersecurity. So I usually use the metaphor of the internet is like a war front where you get into. But a war front is even better, because when you get to a war front, soldiers go in there with guns and with shields and with every protective and offensive mechanisms. But the internet, unfortunately, you get into the internet like a naked person going into a war front. Immediately you're on the internet. Once your phone is connected to the internet, you are vulnerable. And let's not even talk of just the internet. Immediately you turn on your Bluetooth device. Many people don't know this, but immediately you turn on your Bluetooth device, you are vulnerable. Immediately you actually have a digital device and you're talking with someone face to face, even if it's not a digital device. And as a matter of fact, social engineering, which is very common in cybersecurity, could happen without the internet, could happen without a digital device, could happen without communication. I could walk up to you, and just by talking with you, I convince you that I'm a distant relative, and you are needed immediately to do me a transfer of some funds or of some cash. And if you actually believe that, you're going to fall prey to my exploit. So everybody, what more of you being on the internet? Once you're connected on the internet, we should know that not every connection is going to be protected. If you are in your office, if you are at home, whatever you're using, it's very possible for anyone to send you a message on WhatsApp, on Facebook, using SMS, using whatever technology to call you by phone, and attacks happen every day through this means. So you're on a war front, you're naked. You probably are seeing a landmine and you don't even know it's a landmine. You step on it and the consequences are catastrophic. So every single person who is on the internet is vulnerable.
And now, we have heard a lot of celebrities, companies complaining about the fact that their accounts have been hacked. How can we prevent our social media accounts from being hacked?
First, again, we'll go back to education. We educate ourselves. Once we are cyber security aware, we are going to know the venues from which all these attacks come. Because as it's said in the cybersecurity field, to be able to defend, you must think like a hacker. To be able to know how a hacker is going to get you, you must think like them. And so in cybersecurity, the first thing is to be educated. And to be educated, you are being trained on knowing exactly what hackers are doing to be able to get to you. So if you are an influential person, we have a lot of influential people who are on social media, for example, Facebook, Twitter, and all the rest, and their passwords are their date of birth, their passwords are their pet names, their passwords are their wives' names, their girlfriends' names. They repeat passwords across platforms. A very typical scenario, if I want to get into your Facebook now, for example, and I just wake up and I say, could you please give me your phone? You give me your phone. I go now to your Facebook on your phone. I say, give me your phone, let me make a call. You give me, I go to Facebook on your phone and I go and say reset password. They send a PIN code to your phone. I take the PIN code and I enter it and I enter my own password. I give you back the phone. You're still logged into Facebook. But you don't know that someone just having access to your phone could actually attack you without you necessarily knowing that you've been attacked. Once I log in, you've lost access to your account, even though the account is still open on your phone. The day you lose your phone, you go to a new phone, you want to log in, they're telling you that you can no longer log in. It's very possible. And all of these are happening because people are not educated enough to know that these are the methodologies which attackers actually use to get to us. So it becomes very, very difficult to protect ourselves.
Okay, Cedric, Cameroon adopted a specific cybercrime and security legislation on the 21st of December 2010. It includes criminal substantive rules, procedural rules, as well as provisions on international cooperation. Tell us more about this law.
A very comprehensive law, however, a very outdated law looking at the pace of technology. a law which was formulated in 2010. It's got very, very good, great general provisions for cyber security, for protection, for encryption, for privacy, and a lot. But I think where cyber technology was 13 years ago, we are very far off today. So I think it's a law which should be revised constantly. I actually had an incident where one of our employees was actually gotten in one of my former companies. An employee was actually gotten by a law enforcement officer, and the law enforcement officer had to use that law to quote crime which that employee had done. Meanwhile, within the perspective of today's world, that was actually something which was not supposed to be considered as a crime. So if you look at a law which was formulated since 2010, with provisions being implemented since 2010, and we are looking at 2023 where we are today, TikTok didn't exist in 2010. iOS 12, iOS 14, iPhone 12, iPhone 14 didn't exist in 2010. We didn't have a lot of technologies into drones, for example, were not a common thing in 2010. Several other kinds of technologies. AI was very limited in 2010. So that's a law which needs to be looked into and revised on a constant, continuous basis. That's the first thing. The second thing is I think there is very little awareness of this law, because on social media on a constant basis we have people who are actually violating this law continuously without knowing. For example, taking someone's nude photos and sharing them online, it's a crime punishable by that law. Many people do not know it. Sharing what could be considered as child pornography, for example, it's a crime sanctioned by that law. Many people might not know it. So there is a lot of times where the law enforcement comes to probably mete out punishment on someone based on something the person thought was just a minute offense. Meanwhile, that offense is actually being covered by a law existing in Cameroon. So it's a law which needs a lot of education, a lot of sensitization to be propagated around. So we on social media know that we don't just need to go around talking and acting in any way. Many of the things we are doing are crimes. And if we have not been called up for those crimes, to answer for those crimes, we shouldn't think that those things are necessarily not crimes. There have been a lot of people, influencers and others, who have actually been arrested for several things they've been able to say on social media, on TV or on radio, and they cried foul, not knowing that those things were actually covered by a cybersecurity law in Cameroon. So I think there should be huge sensitization of that law, all of its general provisions, and people should know exactly that going on social media is not as free as, or going on any other media platform, any digital communications platform, is not necessarily as open and as unrestricted as we actually think it is. Just placing a comment on someone's post could actually land you in serious trouble. So we should be very careful with how we interact with our daily digital activities.
You earlier said this law is outdated. Considering the fact that fast and constant evolution technology, can this law effectively and efficiently fight cybercrime?
It will to a very great extent, because let's face it, Cameroon itself is not as developed as the other Western countries in terms of digital technologies. And when you look at the law on cybercriminality, it covers a lot. It's very broad and generalistic. So it does cover a lot in terms of cyber crimes. So the law does not necessarily mention specific tools which are being used or which could be violated. It talks generally in terms of communications, be the radio communications, be the internet communications, whatever kind of communication systems which are being used. It talks of communication systems in general. It doesn't mention the specific devices, because as technology is growing, we'll be using communication systems. From that generalistic perspective, the law does address a lot, but I also think if we could go into specificities, there are several loopholes which could be picked out from the law, which we might not be getting, which we might not be able to find out. So if new technologies are going to be coming up in the future, and which have been coming up, there are other technologies which we are probably not used to within the country. We need to also make laws which are going to be comprehensive enough to cover those technologies. Another perspective is technology is changing. Something like cryptocurrency, which was which was looked at, by 2010, cryptocurrency was very scary. Today, we are expanding to a global village, a world which is a global village where any country which does not allow the legal use of cryptocurrency, for example, is actually going to be retrogressing and is going to be limiting all the entrepreneurs who are trying to get into fields where that is being used. We are going into the world of AR and VR. We are going into the metaverse. We need laws which are going to be guiding things like that. These are phenomena which we couldn't even think about a universe existing out of our current universe in 2010. We need laws to be able to guide that. If we have people in Cameroon probably playing the Fortnite game or who are on any other metaverse, what are they doing there? There are crimes being committed on those different systems, but the law does not cover those crimes simply because they are virtual. We have the blockchain, which is developing rapidly, and a lot of technologies are being built on the blockchain. Those technologies were not thought about in 2010. Now, whatever crime is going to be committed within those perspectives, it will be difficult for this law to be able to cover those crimes. If I'm committing a crime on the metaverse, many people don't know you can actually commit a crime on the metaverse. You could actually steal someone's money physically by using the metaverse, for example. And if I steal someone's money on the metaverse and a bank transfer is made from that person's account to mine, how do we trace that without the law actually being updated? How do we know that this is what happened? But if you still go again, because I started by saying from a generalistic perspective, if you go from the generalistic perspective, it's still theft using electronic means. The only problem now is when it comes to the interpretation. Are we going to be able to interpret it well? Are our judges going to understand what the metaverse is? The people who are guiding the law, are they going to understand what blockchain is? Are they going to understand what cryptocurrency is? Are they going to know whether the use of this is legal or illegal? That's going to be a big problem.
So now, once someone discovers that his or her account has been hacked, what should he or she do?
If your account gets hacked, your first step should be to contact a security expert, in my opinion. If your account gets hacked, the first thing you should be doing is not raising an alarm to the general public to tell them your account has been hacked, because you're giving a lot of information to the hacker. Because every good hacker has a methodology they follow, and part of this methodology is making sure they cover their tracks. And just like it is said in crime, most criminals like visiting the areas they have committed the crime in. Every hacker, after hacking you, likes observing you to see what steps you're taking. So if your account has been hacked and the first thing you do is to raise an alarm and to talk to everybody on social media without contacting the police, who've got experts in solving the crimes, without contacting a cybersecurity expert, you're actually making a mistake. So immediately, each time you discover your account has been hacked, first try to act as fast as possible. Because the longer it takes, the more it's going to be difficult for you to recover that account. Immediately you do that, your action is going to be contacting an expert, contacting law enforcement for them to be able to make sure that that account is recovered, or whatever happened to that account, whoever is behind the attack is actually apprehended. So that would be the best advice to give you in case your account ever gets hacked.
Cedric Che Azengwa, an ethical hacker. And that's what put an end to today's edition of the 6 p.m. Primetime Newscast. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your keen attention. Stay in the company of more interesting programs on Equinoxe Television. So long.